genre.
Welcome to Beyond Geek By Night, where we will be discussing each episode of the Geek By Night podcast leading up to the series finale. On today's episode, we will be discussing the 7th story arc, Friends and Enemies. So sit tight, we have a lot to cover today, because we're about to go beyond Geek By Night. I am your host, unnamed mysterious after-show host. And here is our panel. I'm joined today by creator and executive producer Scott Carelli.
Hi.
Executive producer and voice of Dr. William Medina, Nick Jimenez.
Hello.
Voice of Lorelei Swift, Naomi Wong.
Hello.
Voice of Charlotte Swift, Rachel Gatlin.
Hi.
And voice of Simon Holt, Andrew Ball.
Hello.
In this story arc, Friends and Enemies, comprising episodes 25 through 28. Oh boy, I feel like it's going to take like 2 hours to recap everything that happened in these episodes.
Just listen to the episodes. Let's just play the episodes now. Cue it.
I'm going to give it a whirl. Let's see. All right. Simon is actually way more powerful than we knew, and we are introduced to his artificial assistant, Atlas. He's also been keeping a log of the underdog's whereabouts and emotions, mentioning a certain Project Tough Love. While at a coffee shop, Simon is introduced to Charlie, who seems to like Simon very much. While Elliot and Lorelei head to the McKinney City Business Owners Conference, the rest of the gang speculate about what Lorelei is hiding, all while Simon secretly reads their minds. When Charlie comes to the comic shop to see Simon, she reveals that she has superpowers, with the ability to negate other super individuals' powers. Oh, and she's also Lorelei's sister, Charlotte. As Charlotte assembles the overachievers comprised of various antagonists she has recruited from previous episodes, Simon joins along and assists her by conducting Project Tough Love, which is a series of traps and devices to capture and nullify his fellow underdogs based on their powers. While things go poorly at the business conference, Joel Vickers makes a triumphant return, channeling his inner John McClane and helping Elliot and Lorelei escape. Meanwhile, Simon reveals that his intention for Project Tough Love was never to be used this way, and seems to have a change of heart. Max Carmichael, his assistant Billy, and Lorelei all arrive, and Lorelei is stunned to see her former colleague Billy, who is actually, Dr. William Medina. Elsewhere in the compound, Gretchen, yes, that Gretchen, reappears to save Joel's life, before finally revealing herself to Elliot. Dr. Medina is an absolute dick to Max, leaving his recruited followers to open fire on our heroes, only to have the bullets stopped by Simon. Billy, Charlotte, and the overachievers make their escape. Soon after, Gretchen reveals herself to the group along with Elliot, who has trouble explaining that he and Gretchen have gone on some sort of time loop adventure back to the future at the speed of regular time, but beginning at another time, which is now caught up to this time. Finally, Charlotte does what Charlotte does best, mysteriously plot nefarious plans in the seconds leading up to the end credits. Did I get everything?
I think as best as you could.
Well done.
Yeah.
This is a really, really great set of episodes. So before we dive into the episode, Rachel, I wanted to ask you how you got involved with Geek By Night. It's something I ask everybody, and everybody tends to have a very different answer for it. So what is your story that led you to the show?
Oh boy, buckle up. I was involved with the OG project. Like, how many years ago was that? 10? 11?
That was 2006 and 2007.
Oh,
I think
boy.
your first episode is like the 4th or 5th episode?
Fifth.
5th episode of the original show, which would have been 2006, I think. So, yeah.
It's like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and I was friends with you, Scott, before that, because I listened to that show. The show you did.
Two Geeks Making a Podcast?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we became friends, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've been involved with this since the beginning, but when that show died, I was like, all right, it ended. Okay. And then this one started up, and Scott was nice enough to give me a role, and I'm so happy to be part of this family.
We're very glad to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
I want to start with Charlotte because we learn a lot about her in this episode, even though we've seen her a number of times before. And she kind of has the same sort of calculated mania that Lorelei has. Had you done other voice work before this, and is this like an intentional choice, or is this just how you felt about the character?
I mean, it's kind of how I felt. I got this sort of like Dana Scully vibe about her, like very smart, but I also feel like she's putting on a front. Like in this episode, I feel like the veneer starts to crack a little bit, and clearly she's been hurt by Lorelei. She's got some scars that she doesn't want to talk about, so she puts up this like hard shell. And I feel like, especially in this episode, like I said, that starts to crack. So I try to channel this. I have an older sister too, who's given me a lot of emotional trauma. So I try to channel that. Like, I'm not as calculated as Charlotte is. I'm way more emotional and reactive. So if I saw my sister right now, I'd probably crumble into a crying mess because I've got that like that trauma that I haven't dealt with, and I feel that's the same about Charlotte. She just doesn't know how to not. What am I trying to say? She doesn't. She has to be this other person because she doesn't want to be herself. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I mean, she's literally putting on an accent.
Yeah, that too.
Because she's Scottish, like Lorelei, but she uses an American accent because she wants to be that person, not who she was raised to be.
She reinvented herself to kind of separate herself, but she also went into the same field that her sister did. So it's like she's trying to be someone else, but at the same time, she's also trying to outdo her own sister. And I think the first time I tried to record my lines, I tried an accent and it came out so terrible. So thank you that I don't have to butcher a Scottish accent.
Yeah, we just wrote it into the character, and I think it works for her. Especially since we're in an audio format, so it's not like we can dress you in a way that says that visually says what we're trying to pull off, and instead we have to do it in audio. So I think the accent thing works out pretty well.
Yeah.
It's also prime third culture kid like behavior.
Yeah.
So Scott and Nick, obviously, like a lot of things built up to some of the big reveals in this episode. Did you know from the very beginning that the mysterious woman that we've been seeing the whole time is going to be Charlotte Swift specifically?
Definitely not. That was something that we came up with. I think it didn't happen until after we cast Rachel. Because originally, in the original script, that was Mysterious Man. And then we wrote that script, and then I was like, we have to give Rachel something, because Rachel has been like a big cheerleader this whole time with the Geek by Night stuff, and she's so excited for it to come back, and I want to give her something, and I don't want her to have to wait until we write her something in another episode. I was like, what can we give her in this episode? And I was like, well, what if we change that mysterious man into a mysterious woman? And then we'll figure out who it is later on. But like we knew what the plan was. We knew that the mysterious man was putting together all of the villains into like a Legion of Doom type thing. We knew that, but we didn't know why or what his connection to everyone else was. And then when we cast Rachel in that role and changed it into a mysterious woman, I think that's when we started thinking, well, like, who would have beef with the underdogs? Probably no one. But they do have this other character who probably would have lots of enemies.
Sure.
And then we just started like spitballing about like who this could be and what their connection to Billy was, because we always knew what Billy's deal was from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
That was never, we always knew that going into the first episode. And if you go back and listen to, all of the episodes, you can sort of, there's hints about like the fact that Billy doesn't actually do what Max says. Like he's faking it. You can tell. I think we wrote it that way. But as far as Charlotte, I think that just came, I think sometime in writing like episode 3. Like, yeah, I think around there
is when we started turning the ship, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite movies of all time is A League of Their Own. And I remember being so like compelled by the drama between Kit and Dottie as a kid. And because like the miracle of that movie is like you never think that Dottie like is, you know, you feel the pain and you understand where both of them are coming from. And I am not a sister, but I have a sister, and so I like connected with me. And so I think we, as soon as the idea kind of came up in the air of like, well, what if that was Lorelei's sister, or what if that was connected to Lorelei? We just found there to be so much drama because Lorelei is a character that, kind of like Charlie, has a performance that has created a persona for herself, someone to kind of live up to in her, you know, and so the idea of creating someone like, well, who would that character be? And that just became so fun for us and then that kind of became like the most compelling thing. And that's when we started steering the ship towards that.
Yeah, I think actually I said episode 3. I think where it actually happened was around the time we were writing her scene with the ire in Under the Bridge. Because we were prepping Ghost Story. And I think I wrote that scene in Under the Bridge. And I think we just started like, I was writing that scene, and I think I messaged you around that point, and it was like, what if they were sisters? And then he was really into that idea for all the reasons he just said. And then I think at that point, that's where Henry came up, because we realized that we needed a wedge. And so we decided a wedge between them. And so we decided that Henry would be that wedge in one fashion or another. And then that's how Ghost Story came to be. The whole plot.
And then it kind of became a game of challenging ourselves, because we loved both of these characters so much that we didn't want to. Well, like, okay, well, Henry, because that's sort of Lorelei's big emotional vulnerability for a lot of reasons. It was the most compelling reason. And we were like, well, how do we make that interesting and not just a case of like a love triangle, which would seem so, I don't know, underserving of these characters. So then we kind of started digging deeper and then made a puzzle for ourselves that then proceeded to become one of the most difficult episodes we've ever written.
Oh, writing this episode was like pulling teeth.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a nightmare. It took so long.
Drafts upon drafts.
I think there were probably 8 to 10 drafts of this episode, of this set of episodes. I mean, it was a nightmare to write this. It started off with like, I think we broke one version of it, and Ray and Billy wrote that one. And then we got those first couple of episodes that they had written, I think parts 1 and 2, because I don't remember for sure, but I don't think they worked on all 4 parts.
No.
Because, I think it was only like the first 2 or maybe the first 3. But then...
And it was never a question of, you know, it really just became so all hands on deck that it became more efficient for just Scott and Cass and I to just pass the ball to each other, just to kind of have nothing to do, because I think Billy and Ray like both knocked it out of the park with those early drafts.
Yeah, they were really good. It was the story that wasn't working, which isn't their fault, because for the writing staff, that's not really their responsibility. They're executing a story that we came up with, and we kind of failed on that. And then they got busy and weren't able to do subsequent drafts, and so we just sort of took it over. It was a nightmare to get through this and figure out, because there's so many moving pieces, and
it's the fulfillment of some, it's one thing to build a bunch of trains, and it's another thing to like, okay, well, now how are these all going to like coexist and like lead somewhere?
Right.
And, fulfilling the Gretchen stuff, and then like bringing Joel and the ire back in, bringing the overachiever, introducing the overachievers.
And I don't even think all of that was there originally.
No,
like, I think, originally it was really just like a underdogs versus overachievers story.
Yeah.
And that was it. There was no, like, Elliot wasn't at a business conference, I don't think. Joel wasn't in it. I don't think the ire was in it. Like, none of this stuff was in there.
Yeah.
And I think that when we went to go re-break it over and over and over again, because I'm a monster of a showrunner and such a perfectionist. And I think like eventually, I don't even know how it finally broke, but when it did, I think it happened all at once. And I just pitched the whole story to you, and I just remember we were both getting so excited with every step because we were like, oh my God, we were bringing everything together in this.
It was like realizing we had built a nesting doll for ourselves.
Yeah.
Out of like, it's like, oh, well, okay, they could go to a casino. What if Joel was living in the casino?
Right.
And like, we've always wanted to bring Joel back, and like, oh, they could be going, oh, where's the bus going? The bus is going to Swift Industries. And it just sort of unspooled after, weeks and weeks of, pounding our heads against the wall. Yeah.
The big thing that I think helped was focusing in on the cliffhangers of each act. At the time, acts, now episode cliffhangers, and just focusing on like, okay, what gets revealed at the end of each episode, because that's what we need to like aim toward, and then aiming toward that in each individual episode, each individual act is what I think finally broke the story for us. But yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. I'm so proud of how it turned out.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's by far our best episode produced up to this point. So I'm really proud of it. But man, it was like pulling teeth. It took months.
It did, and I think when we were done at the other side of it, we had sort of found the show. Because listening, because I listened to this one to get ready for this conversation, and it had been a couple years.
Yeah,
and It was like, oh my God, this really is the tone that we carried over working on season 2. Is we really hit the ground running. And I don't know, like the characters, their pitter patter is a little bit more confident. You really feel the comfort of these characters, and then we stretch them to their limits. And that ends up being a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm far enough removed from this that I, re-listening to it, I was like, wow, this is absurdly confident. I don't know who these guys thought they were, but
that's for sure.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm so happy with how this one turned out.
Yeah, I would agree. This is a phenomenal set of episodes, and it's just really, really fun to go through. So, Andrew, got a question for you. A lot of great Simon stuff in this episode.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be basically the most OP member of the Underdogs? There's some really cool stuff with his powers here, and some cool like editing effects with when he kind of reaches his apex of all of that.
Yeah.
How did you feel reading through this the first time and seeing like the culmination of Simon's ascent, I guess?
I loved it. I mean, I remember back when we were doing, I think it was when we were doing the original, I made some comment at some point about Simon, how I could see Simon having like a Jean Grey sort of arc. And yeah, I think just watching him, because he's been pushing himself so hard to understand these powers and to hone them, and when he goes, of course, a guy like that is eventually going to go over the top. And I love the rhythm of it in the writing.
You're acting in this. I mean, everybody's acting, but this being a Simon centric episode, Andrew's acting in this episode is like, I mean, I remember getting those files back and just being completely blown away. I don't know what went into his performance when he was doing this episode, recording this episode, but like, there are moments in this where I get choked up and I know that it's happening. I know I wrote it. We wrote it, and I know what we did, but then hearing Andrew perform that stuff, especially that scene between him and Mindy, is just like, I mean, it's heartbreaking, and it's and I love Simon, and I love that, the dumb idiot just like all about logic, but then, as the underdogs point out, no, you're working on emotions too. That's all this is, you dumb psychopath. And Andrew just brings so much humanity to Simon, to a character that could easily just be, Sheldon. He brings so much humanity to him, and it's the reason why the character works so well.
Yeah, I love those. I love doing those situations where Simon gets to be vulnerable. Even not necessarily his idea to be vulnerable, but when the whole has to be in control of everything all the time, and kind of catches up with him, and it's just like, I might be a teensy little bit out of my league here.
Yeah, and we hear that, there's the part where he's kind of right after he goes to the mind place with Mindy, where there's like the loud, angry voiceover Simon along with the regular Simon's voice, and it's not just doubled. Like the regular Simon is like, I can't control this, and the voiceover is just screaming, and it's just more. It's kind of like the two sides of Simon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool to see those two come together at the same time.
I looked at it. Go ahead.
Oh, no, please.
Oh, I was going to say, I looked at it as a good allegory for mental health, where like if you suffer from something like depression or anxiety, you're kind of always trying to stay even. And there are times where like that voice in your head, I gave her a name. I won't say it, but I gave that voice a name, and like it's like saying, you look bad in this outfit, or you're doing this wrong. And like there's times where that voice just kind of overtakes your more rational voice. But like when you're constantly trying to keep on top of things, and eventually that all falls apart.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm always, every time I go back to that episode, I'm always so impressed by what Scott was able to do with that effect at the end, with the voices overlaying. It's some really impressive audio work, and I think it really paints a picture.
Yeah, I love the way that turned out. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I do love the slight differences in the writing between the two versions of each line.
Yeah, I remember that was like the one and only time I think Andrew reached out to me while he's recording lines, because he was like, what is this? Am I recording both of these? Like, what am I doing? And then I had to give him that very specific direction of like, right, one, you're being vulnerable, extremely vulnerable and tired and dying. And the other one is putting on a facade and being this threatening guy. He just knocked it out of the park. He gave me exactly what I wanted, and editing that was definitely a joy.
So Naomi, Lorelei obviously has a lot that happens in this episode, and it's kind of a reckoning for her in many ways. One of the big reveals is that she has known where Gretchen is this entire time. I mean, in Ghost Story we heard a little bit of that, but now we see like to some extent she was kind of in on this. Do you think Lorelei did the right thing, or do you think she was in the wrong for deceiving everybody?
That's a really big question. Wow.
Yeah, we get asked about our performance, but you get to answer for your character's
the moral implications of making choices.
It's because it's almost difficult to listen to, with realizing that Lorelei knew that she was going to hurt people with this, but even Charlotte has a line about the greater good. At one point, it's just kind of like another overlap.
Yes.
Greater good.
Well, I can't hear the phrase "the greater good" without saying "the greater good."
Sure.
What it was interesting is that I found out by reading the script. I can't remember what time this was uploaded, but I'm pretty sure this was one of the scripts that I read like within 5 minutes of it being uploaded, and I don't think anyone else was awake. So maybe it was first thing in the morning for me.
That's most of the scripts that come out. That's usually the case with you.
I just like read it and I'm like, what the heck? And then this might be one of the ones where Scott was like, how have you read it already? But, I think at least she thinks she's doing the right thing. I'm not sure, because not all of those things have been revealed in this episode, so I can't go too deep into spoiler territory. But I don't know, it
sounds like it's...
I think
it's like a trolley exercise. What's really right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Simon sees it that way too. Simon had good intentions for what he was trying to do, but it got flipped upside down. Yeah.
It's kind of an episode about two of the show's most ambitious characters kind of having these impossible challenges set before them that really brings them out of their comfort zones, because it's not about how smart they are, or it's about them dealing with their emotions,
right,
and the people in their lives, and questioning what they care about.
Yeah. So I want to talk about powers, because we have we have a couple reveals in this set of episode for people that have powers. One of them being Charlotte, the other being Billy. When you were putting together the character of Charlotte, Scott and Nick, did you know that she was also going to be affected by the origin particle, or is that something that kind of came organically over time?
Was it a result of the drafts upon drafts that we mentioned?
Yeah, earlier? I don't remember if that came in one of the rewrites we did. We definitely didn't before going into this episode. That's for sure. I don't remember if her power negation was in the Ray and Billy drafts or not.
Yeah, I really want to say that in those early episodes, if you go back, those are the work of writers who believe that character does not have powers.
Right. But I definitely think that came up in this episode, because we were just thinking about worst case scenario, somebody how could we possibly we're literally introducing the fact that Simon is the most OP character, even if that term bugs me a little bit because he's literally dying being OP. So
True.
How OP is he really?
He's like Constantine.
Yeah. So we were just thinking in terms of how is he going to be vulnerable in a situation like this? And then it occurred to us the only way is if he doesn't have his powers, and the only way to not have powers is if the other person has the power to negate powers, and then that's how that came through.
It's like making a card game for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
And used in a really cool way to kind of stop Simon, and Anita gets her little moment and all that. So,
yeah.
And what's fun about being at this point in the season is, we're discussing episodes that there's only a couple left before the second season's going to begin. And a big mystery that's brought up in this episode, and is not closed yet in the series that's out so far, is what Billy's powers are. So I thought I'd do a little exercise. I have come up with a list of things that I think are Billy's powers. And all I want you to do, don't say yes or no. I just want to know if I'm close with any of them. All right?
Okay.
All right. Number 1, he gives people powers without the particles. Number 2, he can steal other people's powers. Number 3, he can turn rotten fruit into ripe fruit. Number 4, he's very good at chess, better than average. Number 5, he can speak with raccoons.
Ooh.
Number 6, right? That'd be great.
I want that power.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Please be my friend, raccoon. Come into my house.
Be my friend. Here's some trash.
Stay out of my trash.
Do it.
So number 6, he doesn't have powers. He's just a liar, and I'm really mad at him for being mean to Max. Number 7, this one just says bees. I'm not. Number 8,
he can command bees. Come to me, bees.
Or
That's
does
not
he
a bad
turn
idea.
into
Sure,
a
we'll
million
go with that.
bees? Okay.
Yeah, or he
Yes.
shoots bees out of his eyes like Cyclops.
So is it the dogs? This is the dogs with bees in their mouth, and when they bark, they shoot bees at me.
Or maybe he is bees, like Candyman.
Yeah, that was
like 1 million ants. Something. Yeah.
He's made of bees.
That was my theory. Yeah.
Number 8, he learns instruments really fast. Number 9, half dinosaur.
Ooh.
Number 10, always good breath, no flossing required. Number 11, he can stay up way, way past his bedtime without getting tired. Number 12, he can switch between being really fat and being really skinny whenever he wants. Number 13, he can summon an army of smaller, angrier Billies. And number 14, adamantium skeleton.
Yeah.
Are any of these close?
I will say you are lukewarm on at least one of those.
Awesome.
It's the bee one.
I thought it was the dinosaur one.
If I can just be an actor for a second and speak on my character's behalf, we don't know how many unpaid hours Billy worked while under Max's employ. We don't know the degree to which Max took advantage of Billy's servitude. He could have had to get him drive through at like midnight.
Yeah. He's definitely cleaned more than one bathroom accident. That's definitely been a thing that's had to happen.
Sure. So his anger, I'm just saying his anger in those final moments are somewhat justified.
Yeah.
I just had a visual in my head of Max trying to build a really complicated Lego build, and he does it wrong. So he calls Billy in the middle of the night. Billy, come fix my Legos.
Yes, sir.
I tried to build a Millennium Falcon, and instead I built a truck.
So, Nick, how was it playing this other side of Billy that we finally get to see?
It was actually at the time very
cathartic.
Yeah, because this is a twist that we'd had in our pocket for since 2008. That was always going to be the plan, was that at some point Billy was going to be revealed to be the secret bad guy. And I remember at the time being like, oh, that'll be fun. And then the show ended and I was like, oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
And then when the show got, when we went back to the garage and took the hood off and we were like, we're going to do this again, it kind of just became like, oh, we can finally do that Billy thing. So I remember sitting down to record and being like, wow, I'm finally doing it. I'm finally going to do the monologue where he reveals it. And so, yeah, I remember at the time it was really, it was fun to finally get to show the audience that, the listeners that had been with us for so long.
The real Billy.
The real Billy Medina.
Yeah.
William. Yes. And yeah, I even, in my notes here, I saved some of his little speeches because it's, I imagine it is very cathartic. It feels like he has a lot to say, and is finally able to say it.
Yeah, and it was fun finally giving him a last name and making him canonically Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Dr. Medina was mentioned in a previous episode, just not in the context of Billy. Is that correct?
Yes, there is a reference to Dr. Medina, I believe, in not the one after Status Quo. Is that what it's called?
Is that right?
Yeah,
in passing.
Okay.
I think
definitely
maybe
mentioned him. I definitely mentioned him.
Yeah.
Because it was I think in my audition sides.
Oh.
I think.
Okay.
Or at least it was in that sort of speech.
It was there all along.
No.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, it is in my notes for that.
Okay.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it just goes to show, part of this you guys did have a long time coming. I mean, it sounds like in the original show you didn't get to the point where this reveal came out.
We wrote it, and in fact, you guys are going to hear it when we do those table reads that we're going to be doing of those old scripts.
Mm-hmm.
The unproduced scripts.
Yeah, for Patreon. The unproduced classic GBN scripts. So yeah, there's 5 of them, and it's the 5th one because it was it was in the penultimate episode. The season finale of that original GBN was never written, unfortunately. But it feels enough like a season finale. I think the one where the reveal happens. But yeah, we were planning on doing it. We had the scripts, and then the show fell apart. But yeah, we're gonna we're still going to do the thing.
Very different circumstances.
Yeah.
But because we hadn't created Lorelei or Swift Industries yet.
Right.
So
that was all going to be stuff that was going to happen in season 2 of the show. And instead we skipped it forward when we relaunched the show so that we had some new toys to play with. Now I think we have too many toys, which is a problem we're having in season 2. Writing season 2 has been, we're having so much fun, and I think that it's so good. I'm really, really happy with how it's going, but we're getting to a point where all of the toys are converging, and we're like, oh my God, we have so many toys. What are we?
And it's also, and it all kind of started with this episode because everyone is in such fine form. I mean, Morgan's so good in that last scene.
Just gonna mention that, yep.
Yeah, and Zach freaking crushes this episode, and I think this is when Scott and Cass and I really started like, oh, we could like throw them anything, and they'll crush it. So
every single line that Zach says in this episode is either hilarious or just like incredible. Yeah. Like I don't know how he, I don't know what he does when he goes into Joel mode. I mean, I know literally what he does to go into Joel mode, but in terms of like, the way the line readings that he does on these lines are just unbelievable. And I loved revealing the fact that he was like a super good dude. Like he was like,
yeah,
like he seems like kind of a weasel. And then he's like, yeah, no, I'm actually like a really, really good guy. Like I'm actually a really good guy.
The best version of Joel is the Joel that's setting fires in the basement.
Yeah, exactly.
the chaotic neutral, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on my listen through in preparation for this episode, I think one of the things that I had forgotten or surprised me the most was just this new side of Joel and getting to learn more about him. I mean, we focus a lot on Dr. Medina and Charlotte, and we forget that there's been this character there since the very first line of the series, and he had this in him all along. When you all were re-listening to this episode, was there anything that surprised you or maybe you forgot about?
There's like an interesting reference to I don't know, like remembering that Simon was like a doctor.
Oh yeah,
yep.
Sure.
I was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, I guess he would be. Yeah,
yeah. There's like that really is when I go back and listen to these. There's all of these like asides that I'm like, oh, that's right. They have a cat. Like, right.
All of the things that surprised me, I can't talk about because they all involve things that we are paying off in season 2.
That's very true.
But like, there's a bunch of stuff
Very
in this
juicy.
where I was like, oh, we're pretty good at this.
Yeah, in a world where someone would write like, "What's the one Geek by Night episode you have to listen to before season 2?" You know,
it's
like,
this one for sure.
It would be this one.
Yeah. So it sounds like we'll get answers to some of these things pretty soon, which is really great.
Yeah.
In this episode, we get the overachievers. We get, the Ire and Anita and Janet and all of them. Was that the plan the whole time to have this Legion of Doom? Like, were you building a team, or were you still kind of taking it episode by episode when we got to meet these characters?
I think we kind of realized that this was the episode where we could bring back. I think that was kind of one of the early things, was that we wanted this to be the episode where you find out what the mysterious woman has been doing, and what she's been doing is collecting all of these people that have been wronged by the underdogs and creating some kind of Legion of Doom. And then the game became like, well, why? And then through the rewrites, we found all these ways to kind of bring everything and connect everything together. And it was also a really fun way to revisit these characters and see how, I don't know, my favorite thing about the overachievers is that they kind of get the brunt of things, whereas the underdogs are kind of luck out of everything. They just they hit every branch, and that makes them really fun to write, that they've actually had kind of an ordeal instead of like a fun adventure.
Yeah, this guy loves the overachievers, and he's been writing more of them in season 2, and it is some of the funniest stuff I think we've ever had on the show. I love them to pieces, especially when he writes them.
Thank you.
I think they're just such a mismatched team of people that you're like, why did we do this? Because we knew that we wanted a team, but we didn't know what the team looked like. We were just like, yeah, it'll just be like, whoever she goes around picking up episode to episode. But like, we're not going to like pre-plan who the team is going to be. The team is going to be who the team is based on, what we end up doing episode to episode.
This was the opposite of Moneyball.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. We didn't want the team to dictate who the villains of each episode were. We wanted the episodes to dictate that.
So when we got to episode 7, we were like, okay, who's the team? And it was Cosmo, Janet, and Madison.
Yeah, and Anita.
And Anita.
Right.
So like an aging Gen Xer kind of baby boomer guy with like a failed, not a failed, but like a teen star turned like this, like the most like effed up power I think we've ever given somebody.
Yeah.
And
an actress who no one remembers, and that's it. That's her power. No one remembers her. She has no other powers.
So you come back to her in 107, and now she's just this completely different character.
Yeah,
that has lost all composure. And then you have Madison, who's just this like Poison Ivy, Bruce Timm, like cool, collected, like I don't know. So we were like, what is? And then Anita, who's like, I'm only here because you're going to tell my parents.
Right.
Like, why is this?
That's right.
Yeah,
because they've all been kind of blackmailed into this, and the underdogs are very much choosing to be there.
I love the overachievers. They're so dumb. I love them.
Well, then like they're amazing because I love writing like how does Madison talk to Janet? How does Janet talk to Cosmo? How does Cosmo talk to Madison? And every combination was just so weird and specific that it was just really fun to write.
Yeah.
Like Charlotte wanted to build the X-Men. But they were all taken up, so she's just like, all right, I'll take the B and C team, whatever.
Yeah.
Gold balls.
Yeah.
But she feels confident enough in her own abilities as a leader that she'll be able to turn them into the team that she wants them to be.
I can whip these misfits into shape like the Mighty Ducks.
Right. So it's been, man, it's they're great. I love those guys.
Things did not get better for them in season 2.
No.
I'm okay with that. Who is calling the shots between William and Charlotte?
It's an uneasy partnership.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I think those two, I think Billy kind of offered. I think their kind of flag they're flying under is that Lorelei. They're not going to do it like Lorelei.
Right.
Lorelei kept secrets. Lorelei compartmentalizes because she thinks that she is the smartest person in the world. We're a team. We share everything. This is a partnership, and then the tension comes from them living up to these ideals that they set for themselves when reality gets in the way and their own baggage gets in the way, because both these characters have very serious trust issues.
Right.
Yeah.
But their plan up to this point, the plan they're enacting in this episode is a 50-50 partnership all the way through.
Yeah. I think Charlotte likes to think she's more in charge than she actually is. Yeah, they both do. They both think like, oh, it's a partnership, but I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Like both holding a knife behind their back.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious, Naomi, Lorelei, you had to play Lorelei on a lot of levels in this episode because you had to know what Lorelei knows in reality, know that under no circumstances can she just say the thing, right? Like Elliot gets shot in this episode because of you. Because you won't just tell him you can't just tell him the truth because it would ruin things. It would ruin time and space. And so how did you approach playing the character at with so many layers going into almost every line of dialogue in this episode?
Oh God. I'm trying to think, how long ago was this that I did prepare it?
It's like 3 years ago, I think, at this point.
Like I think this was before. I think this was before I moved to Vancouver, maybe. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
How did I prepare? That's a good question, for which I'm not sure of the answer anymore. I don't know. I just sort of I try to. I think a lot of the credit probably actually goes to I can't remember who edited the episode or directed the episode and chose which takes, because so it's actually you who layered the episode, because I think I gave every possibility for each line. I was like, one of them's gonna stick, so you're the one who did the work. You're welcome.
And isn't that acting when you get down to it?
Yeah. It's like,
film,
you know, you just sort of gotta throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, I guess. And I mean, so I knew what I knew, and I didn't know everything that was coming after this episode. So I sort of tried for a few episodes to sort of like, all right, so I know something. I'm not sure what I know, but I know something. And, you know, but yeah, it is sort of a Doc Brown kind of thing. It's like, well, you know, you can't, you know, don't tell me. If I tell you this, then that could have serious repercussions. But then also, you know, when do you tape together the note and like cheat? When do you not do that? It's hard to tell. I'm sidestepping because I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I'm also curious, Rachel. I guess compared to, because Nick and I have been listening to the classic show and like sort of reacting to it, listening to it for the first time in like 10 years.
It's like a kid's react to video.
Yeah. I'm cringing a lot. It's been rough.
I'm talking through it.
I am curious about, because, you know, we sort of made a decision to not have your character from the classic series be in this show, in this version of the show, because we just didn't think that she had a place here. And so I guess, like, I'm curious about how you feel about I don't know how to articulate what I'm asking, but like just in general, like how you feel about the change in your character, because I mean, it took a long time for you to get like a full character in the show, because you know we're seven story arcs into the show before you actually get to do like more than one scene in an episode. So I mean, were you happy with the payoff? Were you worried as the show went along that this was all it was going to be? Was this mysterious woman and that was it? Or
kind of a little of both. I was waiting for something to happen, because my original character was only I think only one episode aired.
No, two. It was two.
Okay, it was two.
Yeah.
Like, there was a payoff with her, but we never got to it. We never found out what that big secret was. And I was a little worried that it was going to happen again. You were right to be worried. That's fair. But I put those fears aside. I trusted in the writing team, and I'm like, it'll happen. And I'm so glad that it did, because I knew what the secret was about my old character. I think I told Ray, and I told someone else, because I'm like, I have to tell somebody, because this is never going to come to fruition. So I'm very pleased that this character was able to start as this like little nugget, and then it grew into something much bigger. What was your
reaction to reading the script the first time? Like when you first learned all these things about this character that you'd been playing all season but didn't know anything about.
So I think you gave me some hints along the way, so I kind of knew what was going to happen. I honestly don't remember. I remember being pleased. I was like, yes, it's finally happening. It's like when you like in a book or a show where the audience knows the secret, but the characters don't know the secret yet. Like, we know who Jon Snow's mother is, but he doesn't know, or anyone else doesn't know. But like, we know, like, when are you going to pay that off? And I just remember being very happy that it was finally that pimple finally burst.
Are you guys still kind of using the original series as... are you still mining that for ideas, or do you feel like you've overtaken it to this point where, particularly season 2, do you feel like it has any overlap at this point?
There's a part in where Gibson and Mindy mentioned that they have a cat named Mr. Whiskers, and I remember being like, God damn, I don't think we have time to like put that in, but I really want that to be part of the new show. I really want Mr. Whiskers to have survived the new universe
versions. Yeah,
yeah.
Not a lot. It's a lot of like inspired by like the scene, the OP scene in this episode where Simon just lets loose and like wrecks this building. That is
going Tetsuo, as Gibson calls it.
Right. That is inspired by a similar scene on a much smaller scale in the original show.
With Simon?
Yeah, also with Simon.
Oh, okay.
Where like Andrew I remember we wrote that and Andrew knocked it out of the park and we were like, oh, it's like this guy's like capable of some like really heavy stuff. Like he could pull this off. Like it was inspiring, I guess, to see that Andrew could play this character who in the original show was much more Sheldon-y than he is in the new show. Much less humanity. And be able to play that and then get to a point in that episode. Simon's Laboratory was the name of the episode. And get to that episode and get to that scene and then kind of switch into a total badass mode, which we didn't even know he was capable of doing. And he did it. And then it was at that point that I think the scripts, the unproduced scripts, got a little more ambitious as a result of that. Cause we just started trusting that our actors could do more than,
the kind of sitcom-y beats that the early episodes had.
Right, exactly. And so then when we started doing the new show, I remember from the beginning when we were outlining the season and we were like, okay, this one's going to be a Gwen episode. This is a Gibson episode. This is a Mindy episode. I knew that I wanted the Simon episode to have a scene inspired by that scene from the original show because I thought it was so powerful the first time, but I wanted to outdo it. Hopefully I did. I think I did.
I think you did.
But it was, I don't know. Andrew, did you pick up on that? Did you pick up on that sort of like inspiration that this is like that Simon's Lab episode, but on steroids?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember certain specific lines from that original scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what about the relationship between Simon and Mindy? This episode that we get a lot. Was this something that was in the original show, or did it come up organically?
It's actually something that we were. So while revisiting the episodes, it's actually and Scott can speak on this because I wasn't working here yet. But it was kind of the brainchild of a writer that used to be on the show, Laura Oser.
Yes. Laura Oser, who was my sort of like co-showrunner. So John Pavlich was my original co-showrunner. He left after 5 episodes. Laura Oser became my co-showrunner in the second half, or I guess the second third of the first season. And in that second third of the season is when she was like, I think these guys have chemistry, and I kind of want to play around with this. And I was like, okay, sure. I mean, my feeling at the time was like, in that original show, Gwen and Elliot were the will they, won't they character because Gwen wasn't gay, at least not yet in the original show. And so my focus was on them, and I hadn't even occurred to me that like Simon and Mindy would be a thing. And then she, over the course of a few episodes, sort of laid the groundwork for it. And I really liked it and embraced it, and really, really loved their chemistry and how those two characters operated with each other, and wanted to bring that into the new show. However, the Mindy from the original show is very different from the Mindy that we have in the show.
No one loved today.
Yeah. She's, Morgan Spencer plays the character with, a little bit more of a knuckle sandwich in her voice.
I picture her back in high school that she like ran track.
Yeah.
Or like played basketball.
Yeah. She wouldn't be afraid to punch a guy. It's just, she's got that vibe about her. She's a fighter, whereas I think Kliss, the actress who played Mindy in the original show, she was more in line with like a Cordelia who was secretly smart, which was like it's a totally different thing. And it really worked on the old show. Like we were just listening to episode 9 because episode 10 is coming out next weekend on the Patreon.
The Secret Life of Mindy Gibson.
Right. And we were really impressed with Andrew and Kliss's chemistry and the chemistry between those two characters, even if there were some like cringy moments overall in it.
He bugged her house.
Yeah, he bugged her house. That was, I don't know what we were thinking, why we thought that was funny. But it is interesting that despite the fact that the two characters have changed so much, I think we have deepened their relationship by making them more opposition to each other personality wise. I think we've as a result sort of deepened their connection because it's not as surface level of a connection as just like he's really smart, she's secretly smart. And that was kind of, and they had great natural chemistry. And so, we were really leaning on that. But in this new show, I think one of the things we were worried about was like, oh, what if Morgan and Andrew don't have any chemistry? And then we put a scene together with them, and then it was like, oh, okay, never mind. Andrew just has chemistry with everybody.
I'm special like that.
Yeah, and I've never I never really connected when Andrew pointed out the Dark Phoenix thing. I don't think I ever really thought of that. But now I can't stop seeing that last scene as like your Dark Phoenix and Mindy's Wolverine, and I'm just like really in love with that.
So there's obviously a little bit of time travel discussion at the end of this episode. I'm going to save a lot of that for the next Beyond Geek by Night when we talk about A Matter of Time.
Fair.
But we are at the point in the season where we only have 2 more episodes until season 2. Okay. So I was wondering if we could go around the circle and everybody tell me one word to describe season 2 to get everybody kind of jazzed up for it, because we're going to be hearing these episodes pretty soon.
Put a lot of pressure on the 3 actors in the room. All of their faces just dropped in various ways. Because they're afraid of what they're going to say because they know their boss is watching.
Break their NDA.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I don't remember because I don't remember. I only remember doing 1 table read. I think we did 2, or I did 2, but I only remember the 1.
How many episodes has there been? To be honest, all right. So here's real talk. I put a status on my Facebook today, which was like, the last TV show you watched. And I said the wrong TV show because I forgot which days were which and what order I'd watch things in. So if that tells you anything about my current mental, standing.
Pandemic days, everything is the same.
The cast has 4 scripts right now. That's what they have.
Okay. Yesterday I woke up and I sat in bed and I'm like, what day is it? Is it Friday? Is it... And I looked at my phone and it said Friday. I'm like, is it though?
I'm keeping track of days based on what days particular YouTube channels upload on. It's really helping me out.
I'm doing the same with webcomics.
Yeah.
We picked a hell of a time to start working on season 2. It's really worked out pretty well.
Like what's keeping me in check is like I have to take a pill every day, so it's like marked what day it is. Like, okay. It's Friday.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be a calendar guy, but here we are.
Yeah. Sure. All right, so one word to describe season 2.
Because I know nothing about season 2. Everybody else is in the know, but I'm just a fan.
It's I'll say it's meaty. It's
okay.
It's a nice thick burger of a season.
And it keeps getting thicker.
Yeah, it just keeps growing exponentially.
Yeah, got to unhinge your jaw to get your mouth around that.
Yeah, it's like one of those like Jughead sandwiches. It just keeps
or like Scooby and Shaggy, just like
adding it up.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know why I'm doing
sideways and just.
But you can't see me. What actions I'm doing.
Hardy.
Yeah.
What about you, Scott and Nick?
How would you describe it?
I'm going to say sweeping.
Sweeping.
Mm.
I'm going to say, man, I don't know. Evolution.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Geek by Night, the sweeping evolution.
the meaty,
Sweeping evolution. Yes. We'll put that on our next dueling genre t-shirts. Okay, so Naomi or Andrew?
Oh gosh, what
It's
are
okay if you don't want to give anything away.
I'm gonna say superhero-y.
Oh, that's actually pretty
From
good.
what I've read so far.
Cool.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
That's not
Superhero-y.
a real word, but an accurate one. Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Are there
Naomi's got nothing.
I don't want to accidentally give things away because no.
For Lorelei, on behalf of her, I'm going to say I think her word for season 2 is challenging.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Oh, I'll say another word, unexpected.
Hopefully,
After this episode, that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we do some things. I'll say this. We had a longer plan for the show that spanned multiple seasons. And obviously that's been truncated because, this show's a lot of work and
we're talking about something we made in 2016.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we just it's a lot of work and the support that we have has been great, but it's not enough to keep the show going and on any like full capacity, as we've talked about early on in relaunching the show as we have. But we made a decision early on that we were going to take things that we were going to do in like season 3 or 4, and we've just pulled it all forward.
Just use it.
And we're just burning it all. We're burning all of our material that we've thought about. And so I think things happen in ways that we earn but are very unexpected.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There is yet to be like a non-event sized episode so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's true. We have like a wish list, and we've just been checking things off the wish list of like things we've always dreamed about doing on the show,
like with these characters.
Yeah. And so in every episode we try to and just like check one thing off. The last script we sent out to them, we got to check off 2 things, which was cool. But in general, that's been our modus operandi
Nice.
for season 2 is just
Well done.
Yeah, it's just checking off things off of our wish list. So,
All right. Any last notes or thoughts or comments on Friends and Enemies? This crazy set of episodes.
Good job, everybody.
yeah, seriously, you guys rule.
Exceptional.
Thanks.
This guy. What's funny is you were doing the recap thing, and then you brought up the Billy William Medina twist, and I was like, "Oh man, we should have got that actor to be here." And then I was like, "Oh right." I literally forgot.
That's how good he was as
That's how
Billy.
good he
He
is.
has
Yeah.
no idea.
Absolute chameleon.
I know.
It's perfect.
I'm so proud of this episode, and it's because of everyone, but especially the 4 actors here, just rocking and rolling on this episode. You guys just absolutely ruled in this. I blame Chris is the only award-winning actor in the show, but I believe that the only reason that's my fault. I believe that the only reason that happened is because the episodes were coming out at a steady pace when he won that award. And so it felt like an ongoing show that people were excited about. And then we started taking a longer time writing scripts. And unfortunately, I feel like if this episode had come out in time with all the other ones, I feel like all of you guys would have won awards because you guys are absolutely amazing in this. So That's where I'm at. I blame myself that you guys are not award-winning actors. You're award-winning actors in my heart.
We all get a gold star.
Yeah. I will take this a moment just to plug again the Patreon and the classic GBN stuff that we're doing. I think it's a lot of fun. It's super cringy, but I do think it's interesting from an evolution standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cringing just because of like my writing.
It's like the Tracy Ullman Simpsons.
Yeah, certain decisions that I made about like characters, but I was like 20, 21 when I was writing that, and so like completely different person, completely different time period. And we call it all out because we do like an intro at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
We play the episode, and then on the other side of the episode, Nick and I just like break it down and talk about like what we just heard. Yeah, for the first time in like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're reaching the end of the produced episodes, and we're going to start doing recording table readings of the 5 episodes that went unproduced, those 5 scripts, and that we were very lucky to have an old GBN listener ask for them like 5 or 6 years ago. It reached out to me and be like, hey, whatever happened to Geek by Night? And I was like, well, it's never coming back, but here's scripts that we did that we never produced.
Like the Onceler. You just were like, here, take it.
Yeah. And so then we got the idea of this, and I was like, oh yeah, I have those scripts. And I was like, oh no, I've changed like computers 3 times since then. I don't have them anymore. And so then I was lucky to go back into my emails, track him down, the email that I sent him those scripts in, email him again and be like, hey, do you still have these? And he's like, you're lucky I'm a digital hoarder, because in fact I do. And he sent them back to me, and now I have them, and now we get to perform them, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. But that's all going to be Patreon exclusive, and we appreciate all of our Geek by Night patrons so much.
Absolutely.
And it definitely makes things run smoother around here. I can buy sound effects and things that I need because of the money on Patreon. And it's been great, and I highly recommend. We have been putting one out every single week like clockwork on Friday. So you guys, if you're not a Geek by Night supporter on Patreon right now, we are putting out content for you guys. So just maybe sign up through the end of season 2, which I will say right now. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say it.
Oh my God,
I'm gonna say it. Okay, the season 2 premiere of Geek by Night is going to be. Hold on, let me pull it up. Where is it?
He's making it up right now.
October 4th.
October 4th.
October 4th is the season 2 premiere.
The death of Jeffrey Gibson.
Yeah, no. No, the first episode is called The New Normal. And so season 2 premiering October 4th.
The New Normal.
And I'm also going to say, just so that we can be full transparent, because we never are, and that's a bad thing. So full transparency. The first 5 episodes are going to come out sort of in a row, bi-weekly, alternating with episodes of this Beyond Geek by Night. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be a break for the holidays, and then we'll be back with the second half in January. That's the plan. And I'm saying that now so that you guys don't think that we're I don't know, trying to
writing it one episode at a time.
Yeah, just trying to shove a break in there because we're falling behind. No, we're already behind, and we're trying to make sure that we're telling you guys what's going on, and so that so that we hopefully are running these as close to back as we can. Yeah. We want this to come out on time. And so that's the plan right now. The actors have 4 out of the 10 scripts that they're going to get. And we're monkeying around with the 5th script right now. So,
it's a lot like this one in that it's been kind of hard.
Yep. Just, like pulling teeth, because it's the mid-season finale. And so, stuff happens. And we're trying to figure out how to make it all work. A lot of threads. Anyway.
So many juicy details.
Yeah.
You folks heard it here first. Well, I want to say thank you to my guests for joining me today. Scott, Nick, Naomi, Rachel, and Andrew. And thank you to all of you, the fans, the underdogs, for listening today. As Scott said, if you'd like to support the show, please join the Dueling Genre Patreon at duelinggenre.com/support. You can also tell your friends, families, and followers to subscribe to Geek by Night on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts. and stay tuned for the next episode, A Matter of Time. Thanks for going beyond Geek by Night with us, and see you next time.